Hi again then guys, and welcome to episode 18 of Pumping Iron, the review series for the classic muscle cars of GT6. And in this episode we're featuring the C2 generation Corvette. It's from 1963, and this is a vehicle which could potentially have some controversy surrounding it due to whether or not it's a true muscle car. Some people would say it's more of a sports car than a muscle car, and I can understand why you'd say that, because the Corvette is typically imagined to be a sports car rather than a muscle car. But I would personally say that the demarcation for the Corvette, for me anyway, would come with the third generation. To me, the third generation Corvette is the last Corvette which could truly be said is both a sports car and a muscle car. From the fourth generation onwards, in my opinion, it's just a sports car. Now, you're entitled to your own opinion, of course, everyone is, but for the sake of this review series, I will be including the second and third generation Corvettes as muscle cars, but none of the newer versions. So, what does this car, which is in its own right an icon of American classic motoring, have to offer? Because the Corvette's known for being a very competitive car in all of its forms. It's always been a very successful racing machine. I'm a huge fan of the Corvette. Not so much the old ones, but I still like the old ones. So what does this premium Corvette have to offer? Because it costs 85,000 credits, which, although isn't breaking the bank, is a little bit more than some other more obvious muscle car choices. Well, it has to offer a 5.4 litre supercharged V8. It drives the rear wheels, as you'd probably assume, and it produces a pretty decent spec. 679 horsepower and just under 800 pound-feet of torque. Now, in a normal muscle car, that would be good enough. But in something with the aerodynamics and naturally improved weight balance of a Corvette when compared to a more traditional muscle car, that makes this car a bit of a performance gem. It's also lightweight. It only weighs just over 1,100 kilos. And thanks to that low weight, even though it doesn't have anywhere near the most power of the muscle car class, it still puts out over 600 horsepower per tonne, which is very impressive for a car of its age, being, as it is, older than most of the other muscle cars in the game. In terms of actual performance, it's very strong all-round as a track car. In a straight line, well, as I already mentioned, it's not the most powerful of muscle cars, and probably not too surprisingly, it's not among the quickest of muscle cars either. The racing version of the second generation Corvette, which will be reviewed at a future time in a different series, is a very fast car in a straight line. But this particular model, not so much. The top speed on this car is around the same kind of level as a Camaro or a Chevelle, so not bad, but far from being the strongest. It's not going to worry a Dodge Charger or a Mercury Cougar anytime soon in a straight line. But there is, of course, more to life than straight lines, so how does this car compare around the track? Being as it is half sports car, in effect, you would assume that it would have a at least slight handling advantage over some of the other muscle cars, and you'd be right in thinking that. I already mentioned the lower weight and also the superior weight balance. It carries its weight much lower than most of the other muscle cars, which tend to be a bit top heavy. And overall, it makes an excellent track machine. It handles its power extremely well. Of course you can make the car spin its tyres. You can with pretty much any car if you try hard enough. But overall, it's a very good track machine. It's very strong all round, and it's also very good at multiple tuning levels. Some cars are only good at a certain PP. This car's pretty strong throughout its entire performance range. It's a pretty quick machine, regardless of whether it's basically stock or fully tuned. It's always good for whatever PP it happens to fall into. Now obviously that's only to a certain degree. It's not going to take on racing cars and beat them necessarily, but for a road car, especially a road car of its age, it is a remarkably good all-round machine. Plus, it's a premium, which is a nice addition for a muscle car, considering how few of them actually are premiums on GT6. So overall, the Corvette is a car which, in this generation at least, doesn't see as much use by most players. There are people who use it, aficionados of the Corvette generally, or of American classics in general. Most people tend to kind of forget about the car in favour of some of the newer Corvettes or more obvious muscle car choices. But overall, it's a very good alternative to the more obvious muscle car choices like the Charger, the Challenger, the Mustang, etc. And it can hold its own against them despite not necessarily having the most power available. So if you haven't tried the second generation Corvette and you're a fan of Corvettes, what are you doing? Go out and buy one. It's a really good car. But that's it for this episode. I'll see you guys next time, and as always, thanks for watching.